Well, it's run by thugs. You know, our school district, I won't say the name, we allow thugs to be in the school and run them, and we don't get rid of them because then they'll lose federal government and our money, and our superintendent allows this. And so children that are in the middle are quitting school. It's not the thugs that are quitting because they run the schools now, and I was so good. Totally disgusted.
Well, I went to school in Dallas, and I don't claim to be the toughest guy in the world, but I am a lot tougher than I would have been because starting in about 6th grade, I was in private school till 6th grade. Well, I was in public school in kindergarten and first, and then for 4 years I was in private school, and then they put me in public school, and I got off the bus when I was in 6th grade, and a kid with a mustache, you know, probably flunked 4 grades, was beating me up. And I'd come home with black eyes, and my dad would say, well, you better get tough. And that was the old-fashioned view. And then I started getting tough, and then I would beat somebody up who attacked me, but the problem was I'd hurt them. And then I would get in trouble because I defended myself. Did you see that in school?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I left. I just, luckily... I hate to say that because you were just bashing Social Security, but luckily I was able to leave and I'll be able to collect Social Security because my ex-husband passed away. Alex, I can't get a job. When you're 60, you can't get a job.
Sandy, that's your money. I wasn't bashing Social Security. If the government would have actually invested it in guaranteed returns, 3, 4, 5%, you would have your money. The problem is the big mega banks took that money and stole it, and, you know, bought more fleets of Learjets, and so now they've got us dependent on them. I wasn't bashing, you know, anybody. I mean, I've got a grandmother who's on Social Security, and I give her a little bit of money every month because it just doesn't pay for what it did before because of inflation. I'm not saying you're bad because you're retired and on Social Security. That's money you paid for that. The problem is crooks stole it, so it's not there. And so now they're going to say, give us whatever else we want with banker bailouts. Let banks take over the whole economy, or we won't give Sandy her Social Security so they can control you basically as their slave.
And I hate it because I'd rather be teaching. I love teaching. I would rather teach, and I would like to teach the kids that need help, but it's impossible to do it in this district. It's absolutely impossible. But I wanted to say a couple other things because your question was about what we can do and what's going to happen. And
sure.
There were 3 points I wanted to make. First of all, holding the politicians' feet to the fire, and that is Republicans and Democrats, because I don't have much hope in the Republicans either. But this S510 that I know you've mentioned before, and this S3767, the so-called Food Safety Act, and the supplement one, we have kept their feet to the fire. And one of my senators, Durbin, has been on this for over 10 years, Alex. He's been trying to get this passed and using this kid that died in Lincoln as an excuse to pull a Fedra, which had nothing to do with it.
And for those that don't know, that was big mega producers that had the bad eggs and things. They want to literally not let you pick peaches and sell them on the side of the road. This thing was written by big agribusiness to shut... I mean, the FDA admits that they want to shut down family farms. They're on record saying, get big or get out. They want mega agribusiness.
They do, and I live in a farming state, and these little farmers around here, I mean, we're hoping, you know, next time Durbin runs, he's going to be out if he doesn't knock it off. But he's been on this for over 10 years trying to get this passed. But the second thing, too, I wanted to say, Alex, too, is as a teacher, I saw this, and I see it all the time on Facebook and stuff, this racist card. I'm getting so tired of everybody playing the racist card on everything. You're a racist if you're against the Japanese killing whales. You're a racist if you're not for Jesse Jackson. And I am so tired of it. And they use that against us and the Muslims. And
well, they admit they do. Together. It's a political weapon because Americans are good people that have a lot of hospitality. So all these special interest groups in government, they use it. Oh, you don't want government health care? You're a racist. You don't want to give up your rights? You're a racist. You don't want to turn your guns in? You're a racist. It doesn't work anymore, though, Sandy. That's the good news. Americans, whether they're black or white, it doesn't matter, are really starting to see through this.
Yeah, I absolutely am. One more point I wanted to make, because I am a teacher. Alex, we really, and you've been so good at doing this, and I know a lot of young people listen to you, we really have to educate our young people. You know, they're not being taught history. Since the Bush No Child Left Behind, history's just been kind of shoved to file 13. And children are being told now the new racist thing is our founding fathers were racist. That's what they're using now.
I know. In fact, that's in The Economist magazine. We got to get rid of this Bill of Rights because racists are for it. In fact, let me comment on that when we come back. Sandy, I appreciate your call. I'm going to cover a bunch of news when we come back. Then I'm going to get to the rest of your calls before this abbreviated Sunday transmission ends. Infowars.com. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this report by Kurt Nimmo that's up on Infowars.com. I wasn't going to get to this, but this was brought up by the last caller in Illinois. Headline, Rothschild and CIA publications attack Constitution worshipers. That's a quote. And then Kurt has links to the documentation that the Rothschild family funds The Economist along with the CIA. And, of course, the federal government puts out all these reports demonizing constitutionalists, so you know about that. And it's got all the quotes here about we've got to get rid of, this idea that we can't, get rid of the Constitution because it's bad and it's undemocratic and the founding fathers were racist. Well, at that time, Africa was selling slaves. The Arabs were selling slaves. Europe was selling slaves. The caste system in India, that was slavery. Slavery in China, caste system where you couldn't get out of your caste. Same thing as slavery in Japan. Just different names for slavery. But many of the founding fathers said we should outlaw this. That was part of the debate. So it was that idea that led globally towards the move that was started in England to end slavery as we know it. But the quotes that she went over, the statements they're teaching in school, that's exactly what was being taught. The Economist argued against the Constitution is the same one used by liberal academics. The document is antiquated, the product of a bygone era. These are quotes. The founding fathers were afraid of democracy taking hold, so they crafted a document designed to exclude the common people and preserve their aristocratic position. No, they were middle-class, wealthy people tired of the offshore England, the globalist of the time, the mercantilist, not allowing them to have freedom to build their own factories, their own industries. And the founders said, we have a Bill of Rights to protect the minority as well as the majority. Now, this is the big secret that they don't want you to know when they teach this to your kids in public school. Democracy, pure democracy, is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Let's go back 2,600 years to Greece, where democracy came from. Only the aristocracy was allowed to vote, and they would have a bucket for black rocks and a bucket for white rocks. And a white rock was a yay, and a black rock was a nay, a no vote. And they would routinely kill members of the aristocracy, generally by throwing them off a 500-foot cliff or higher, but they had several cliffs they would do it from, different cities. If they disagreed with them, they would vote to kill them. They would have votes. Oh, we voted to kill you. We don't like what you're doing. Many of the most famous philosophers were murdered, thrown off cliffs or parapets of castles to their deaths. In a democracy, if 51% vote to take the other 49%'s property, it happens. In a republic, your life, your liberty, your property, your pursuit of happiness, your Second Amendment, your privacy, it's protected even if the big banks that own the mainstream media brainwash 51% who are on welfare, that's now the case, on one form or the other, to rob you. But the big lie is the globalists say, oh, we're going to rob everybody with globalism to help the poor. And then every time you look at a UN program, it gives the money to the elite, not to the poor. So globalism is an even bigger fraud on that front. So we have that article by Kurt Nimmo. But here's some other articles. Credit unions bailed out. What a deceptive headline from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. backs $30 billion in bonds to stabilize key institutions, subprime legacy. And it goes on to say they actually seized credit unions and are giving this money to the private Federal Reserve that got more power this year out of the crisis they created. And that's why many of these credit unions are saying no to the money. Small business banks may spurn or refuse Obama's $30 billion program. because it gives the government and the private mega banks that control this new private board the control to take them over. It's like the mafia. Let me give you a loan. I want to take good care of you. But that's not what's going on. They want to get in your life, in your door. And that's what this takeover is all about. Continuing, though, Bernanke says economy recovering more slowly than policymakers would like, Bloomberg reports. Isn't that funny? Just last Monday, 7, 8 days ago, they came out and the Fed said that we ended the recession in June of last year, 15 months ago. But his answer is more stimulus money, more banker bailouts, which then never hit the street. If you're going to have socialism, you might as well actually spread it amongst the people. Then they'll buy something and that'll help what's left of our economy. No, 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 no. When they got those tens of trillions of dollars a year and a half ago or more, you never saw the money. Lending tightened up even more. Why should the banks loan? They already have the money. Now they can buy real assets themselves through investment banking. Continuing here, there's a great article, The Economic Collapse, we have linked up on Infowars.com, and it goes through 19 incredible facts dealing with the deindustrialization of America that will blow your mind. And here's just some of them, racing through them. The United States has approximately 42,400 factories. Since 2001, about 75% of those factories employed over 500 people than when they were still in operation. Number 2, Dell Incorporated, one of America's largest manufacturers of computers, has announced plans to dramatically expand its operations in China with an investment of over $100 billion over the next decade. Number 3, Dell has announced it will be closing its largest U.S. manufacturing facility in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in November. Approximately 900 jobs will be lost. Number 4, in 2008, 1.2 billion cell phones were sold worldwide. 1.2 billion. So how many of them were manufactured in the United States? 0, with a link. Every one of these has a link to mainstream news. Number 5, according to a new study conducted by the Economic Policy Institute, and the U.S. trade deficit with China continues to increase at its current rate, the U.S. economy will lose over 500,000 jobs this year alone just due to China. So buy that Chinese cheap product, lose your job. But hey, so what? Number 5, there's a football game on. So what? Shut up, Alex. There's more important things. Number 5, according to the new study conducted by the Economic Policy Institute, if the U.S. trade deficit with China continues to increase the current rate, again, U.S. economy will lose over 500,000 jobs this year alone. Number 6, as the end of July, the U.S. trade deficit with China has risen 18% compared to the same period a year ago. It's getting worse. Number 7, the United States has lost a total of 5.5 million manufacturing jobs since October 2000. Number 8, according to tax notes, between 1999 and 2008, employment at the foreign affiliates of the U.S. parent companies increased an astounding 30% to 10.1 million. During the exact same time period, U.S. employment at American multinational corporations declined 8% to 21.8 million. 21.1 million. You see the difference? It's upside down. In number 9, in 1959, manufacturing represented let me say that again. I'm trying to go too quick, and I'm not good at that. In 1959, manufacturing represented 28% of U.S. economic output. In 2008, it represented 11.5%. And I would add, that's Cook numbers. In 1958, manufacturing meant heavy manufacturing for tax breaks. Now, if you put hamburgers together, or if I ship DVDs out, I can get the manufacturing tax credit. So most of that is even skewed numbers. So in 59, manufacturing presented 28%. Now it represents 11.5%, and that's with Cook numbers. Number 10, Ford Motor Company recently announced the closure of a facility that produces the Ford Ranger in St. Paul, Minnesota. Approximately 750 good-paying middle-class jobs are going to be lost because making Ford Rangers in Minnesota does not fit into Ford's new global manufacturing strategy. And remember all the tens of billions in bailout to GM and Chrysler? Almost all of that went to build plants in Brazil and in Russia and in China. Number 11. I'll never get to all this. It gets even worse than the other points. How am I ever going to cover all this? And I haven't even gotten into the truth about Obamacare, even worse than critics had thought. And then I've got this Blackwater news over here. But we'll try to get to it, but I also want to take your calls. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break. You can see it all at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com, and we'll cover more of this tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central on the syndicated radio broadcast.